It'd be nice if all of the different industries would fit in neatly to exactly one market structure, but unfortunately that's not necessarily the case. Cell phone service, as an example, I said earlier, was an oligopoly with four or three, if you discount Sprint here, firms competing in that market. But that's not really correct. You may well know that there's a lot of cell phone service resellers, like the ones that I've listed here, who buy bandwidth from the bigger firms and then resell it typically at a discount to other customers. Um, the more of those alternatives there are, the less this is starting to look like an oligopoly, right? But there's no bright line. It's not like we can say 9 firms is an oligopoly, 10 firms is monopolistic competition. It really doesn't work like that. These things just sort of exist in degrees and gradations. What we're going to have is different models for these different markets, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a perfect model that describes firm behavior in a particular market. In order to think about which market we're looking at, you're going to want to look at these things that we listed back here, how many competitors there are and how similar are their products. But another thing that you could add in here is how you feel about your competitors. Monopolistic competitors are often not particularly competitive's not quite the right word. What am I looking for? They don't tend to hate one another. They don't tend to want to get ahead at another firm's expense, whereas that typically is the case with oligopolists. Oligopolists tend to want to make sure that not only are they doing well, but their competitors are doing poorly. So the more you think a market is characterized by those sorts of beliefs, the more reasonable it is to believe that you're looking at an oligopoly. Okay, so let's take a look at a few different businesses, a few different firms, and think about what sort of market structure they operate in. So the first one we've got here is Armstrong. Armstrong is the cable TV provider in Ashland. As such, it is the only provider of cable TV services. And so, at first blush, you could say, well, it seems like it's a monopolist. It's got a monopoly over cable TV. Do you think that's right, though? Do you think that they would be well described as a monopolist? See, I don't think so. I think they do have competitors who are selling very, very closely related products. So we've got satellite TV, right? So Dish Network and DirecTV. Those are very, very strong competitors for cable, right? But also, we've got streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Max, whatever else you want to name in here. All of these are pretty strongly competing with cable as well. So I think it would be wrong to characterize Armstrong as being a monopolist. I think oligopoly is probably the best description here. How about McDonald's? McDonald's has competitors, right? So it's clearly not a monopolist. Despite the fact that it has a monopoly on McDonald's hamburgers, that doesn't make them a monopoly. There's clearly firms that are closely related. Now, again, we could probably rule out perfect competition, right? There's not lots and lots of firms selling identical products. So that leads us to either oligopoly or monopolistic competition. Which one do you think makes sense here? Lots and lots of competitors selling similar but differentiated products, or just a few large competitors? I think monopolistic competition probably makes the most sense here, though you could argue in certain small markets maybe oligopoly would make some sense. How about the third one? Ashland University. We don't typically think of universities as businesses, but they are, at least in some real senses, right? Is Ashland unique? Does it have a product completely unlike everyone else and hence it has no close competitors? No, that's not right. Is it operating in a perfectly competitive market where there's lots of firms selling identical products? Again, that doesn't make sense either, so we're looking at one of the two imperfect competition models, oligopoly or monopolistic competition. Does oligopoly make sense? Oligopoly is just a few large firms. No, that one doesn't make sense either. So this one's got to be monopolistic competition.